The first type could be an evacuation warning. This is essentially information that we're going to push out to the public, notifying them of a potential threat in their area where they may have to evacuate their home. An evacuation order is essentially that. We are telling people that it's time to go. There is an imminent threat to life, and we do not believe that you have much time to leave the area.
Code Red is a opt-in alerting system that will dial your number. It'll send you a phone call, a text message, and an email notifying you of an emergency. That message is sent from our office, the Office of Emergency Services. It's going to be very targeted to your area, and it'll be specific to you.
At 5:13, the phone rang with the Code Red call. And so as I was going up 49, I could look over to the left and see the flames in the canyon.
The next layer is for staff to actually be out driving in the areas with a high-low siren. There's no other reason you'll hear that in an area unless we're putting out that evacuation order, not a warning, but an order.
My day started routine patrol, came in and I was notified by dispatch to respond out to the Jones fire. Houses that had evacuation tags made it so we could just pass by. We knew that the residents had already been evacuated. Residences that did not have the tags, we would have to physically go in, knock on the door, look in the windows, make sure there were no occupants inside.
Once you've been evacuated, as you're leaving, put this tag somewhere very, clearly identifiable, whether it's a mailbox, a gate, your address marker, so that deputies and officers can quickly identify if your residence has already been evacuated.
You look out my back window here on the east side, and you see how close this fire came. It was certainly a shock, and at the same time, it was such an incredible relief to have the house as safe as it was.
I think with personal preparedness and being ready, it can feel overwhelming. It can feel like a lot to do, and the most important piece is to just start with one little bite at a time.
Just start the conversation. Have some sort of plan. It can be as small as a meetup place, a destination that everybody will get to, everybody in the household will get to if there's a disaster.
Recognize you live in a community, in a county, that really does take the emergency response as a priority. We have worked diligently throughout the last few years on ensuring that not only our staff are trained and prepared, but we're also putting that out for our community. The more prepared you are in your own community, the better the outcome is going to be.
The level of community awareness, they have to be part of the solution. They have to communicate with their neighbors. They have to be part of the discussion in communities. They have to support the response, the prevention, the education, and ultimately the collaboration and the engagement. People have to be engaged at all levels.
The more you think about it now, the easier it will be when the time comes that you need to evacuate.
We've created this network, and we want you to make sure that you know that you can tap into that. So if you are feeling a little bit overwhelmed, not sure where to start, reach out to one of our offices, reach out to the Fire Safe Council or 211. We're here to support you.
from the foothills of the Sierra Nevada. A new hero will emerge. One who is ready.
We'll call this Board of Supervisors meeting of February 7th, 2023 to order. And the first thing we'll do, Mr. Garcia, would you lead us in the pledge?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, are there any corrections or deletions to the agenda?
None that I'm aware of, Chair.
Very good. So at this time, we will go into our general public comment. Members of the public shall be allowed to address the Board of Supervisors on items not appearing on today's agenda that are of interest to the public and are within subject matter jurisdiction of the Board. Speakers are encouraged but not required to give their name and district of residence. Please direct your comments to the Board, not the audience or staff. No individual may speak more than once during public comment. You may provide comments by speaking directly to the Board from inside the chamber or by calling 530-270-3474 to comment live over the phone. So at this point, you guys have done this before. Ralph, go ahead and start it off.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Ralph Silberstein, CEA Foundation. The Idaho Maryland Mine Final Environmental Impact Report, or EIR, is inadequate in its assessment of greenhouse gas emissions. A valid threshold for greenhouse gas emissions was not set in the EIR. As stated in the EIR, CEQA guidelines allow a lead agency to determine its own thresholds for environmental impacts, including greenhouse gas emissions, and explicitly provides that the agency may consider thresholds adopted by other agencies, provided that such decision is supported by substantial evidence. The Northern Sierra Air Quality Management District has not set thresholds for greenhouse gas emissions, so, as lead agency, Nevada County simply applied the 10,000 ton per year carbon dioxide emission threshold chosen by some other air districts for this project. However, the justifications for adopting these thresholds are unique to each air district. These other air districts have prepared detailed greenhouse gas inventories to identify and evaluate strategies for achieving the statewide greenhouse gas reduction goals within their districts. Nevada County cannot simply assume that the justifications used by other air districts to adopt their thresholds also apply to Nevada County. Hence, the EIR failed to provide substantial evidence required by CEQA by just relying on other districts for setting the threshold. In fact, the EIR provided no evidence beyond just copying what other districts used. But this is doubly wrong because the other air districts originally adopted the 10,000 ton threshold to achieve the older statewide greenhouse gas goal under California Assembly Bill 32, which is no longer consistent with the current statewide greenhouse gas reduction goals. In 2015, the California Supreme Court determined that a project's greenhouse gas emissions should be evaluated based on its effect on California's efforts to meet its long-term climate goals. Then in 2017, the California Air Quality Board Climate Change Scoping Plan added, stating, quote, achieving no net additional increase in greenhouse gas emissions resulting in no contribution to greenhouse gas impacts is an appropriate overall objective for new development. And in 2018, Governor Brown signed Executive Order 5518 calling for the state to achieve carbon neutrality as soon as possible and no later than 2045 and to achieve and maintain net negative emissions thereafter. In view of this, the mine's 9,000 tons per year of emissions for 80 years should be considered significant and unmitigated. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph.
Good evening. Good morning, Chairman Schofield and supervisors. My name is Don Ravines from Grass Valley. I've been a member of the Nevada County Energy Action Plan Working Group for 4 years. Today I am speaking on behalf of the CEA Foundation. The Idaho Maryland mine is proposing an 80-year project, and no consideration was given to meeting the state's greenhouse gas emission goals. The EIR should have established a net zero threshold for greenhouse gas emissions from the proposed project. For example, in considering current goals, the recent draft EIR for another mine, analogous Sargent Ranch Quarry project within the Bay Area Air District, uses a net zero significant threshold for operational greenhouse gas emissions. The EIR should have done the same. The EIR does not explain why the project should be exempted. The Nevada County Energy Action Plan, EAP, goal is to reduce the projected annual grid-supplied electricity the county will use in 2035 by 51% and the annual natural gas usage by 30% through energy efficiency measures. The mine's electricity use is equal to adding the energy use of 5,575 homes in Nevada County. This almost eliminates the result of any energy-saving measures planned by the county. This project will consume 49,000 megawatts of electricity in direct conflict with the county's energy reduction goals. The FEIR states, although the EAP is not a qualified greenhouse gas emissions reduction plan under CEQA, the project was nevertheless determined to be consistent with the EAP. This statement is essentially false. In fact, the mine operation is antithetical to the county's energy action plan. The Nevada County Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors should ask the question, are we serious about the energy action plans? If so, this mine should not be approved. In conclusion, the EIR for the mine fails to correctly identify a valid threshold for greenhouse gas emissions by assuming an outdated 10,000-ton threshold without any substantial evidence, failing to consider the current state goals, and would also effectively undo a large part of the goals of the Energy Action Plan. Under CEQA, the EIR is totally inadequate in addressing the significant impacts of greenhouse gas emissions from RISE goals proposed mines. Thank you, Don Ravines.
Thank you, John.
Good morning. My name is John Vaughn. I live in District 3. Since January of 2022, I've been reviewing the RISE Gold proposal. I've studied and responded to the draft EIR. I've reviewed key parts of the final EIR. I have a detailed understanding of both economic reports. I've talked to the primary author at RDN several times, including meeting with her in person. The issues with the RISE proposal are not about whether RISE's production and revenue estimates have any basis in current provable measurements. They do not. It's not about whether RISE did a good job, RDN did a good job, they did, but critical parts of the input came from RISE Gold. It's not about whether there would be some economic benefit. There may be, although best case, the benefits are half of what's projected. It's not about whether the economic reports include all costs or the costs of risk. They do not. It's not about whether some of the final EIR responses demonstrate a bias toward the applicant. They do. It is about what risk we, our elected representatives, are willing to accept in trade for jobs and county revenue. Over 5,500 individuals and 250 business owners signed petitions and/or wrote letters to the supervisors opposing the mine. Some of the people in the no mine camp might be what one union editor called wild-eyed opponents. Some may be lacking a full understanding of all the detailed issues, but the vast majority are thoughtful people who have done their homework, who care about this community and are committed to a better future outcome than what RISE proposes. If you study the EIR and the economic reports, you will find risk related to toxic mine waste, air and water pollution, well drawdown property values, traffic, and many others. You will find that local jobs and local spending and county revenue are inflated based solely on assumptions provided by Rise Gold. In trade for the possibility of more jobs and more county revenue, are we willing to accept that some toxins may leak into our streams or water supply, or a few wells go dry, or that property values for some homeowners will go down, or a few of our children, grandchildren, or great-grandchildren may have lung issues from fugitive asbestos dust? Don't be fooled by wild claims of economic benefits and proposed mitigations. The data provided by RISE is designed to sell their story. It is not designed to show the facts. Just say no to the final EIR and the RISE proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Good morning. My name is Charles Brock. I am a resident of District 1 and would like to say the following in opposition to the certification of the final EIR. In 1987, the owners of the then Idaho Maryland mine had a map recorded in order to create some lots they could sell off in order to fund their ownership. The mine obviously was not operating then. I've provided for you today a copy of that map, and please note that on that map, the two lots which comprise the primary site for the Brunswick mine have a fault line running through the middle of them that runs for 1,500 feet, sort of diagonally through the core of where they want to build the improvements for the mine. In the final EIR, the planners have determined through conversations with engineers, 2 engineering firms, reputable firms, that this fault line is an inert, it's not inert, the wrong word, inferred fault. They were calling it an inferred fault and an inactive fault. So geotechnically, I'm not a geologist, but geotechnically it's not still viable. And I accept that. But in order to create the mitigation members for what they considered to be a significant matter, that is the presence of this fault, they conferred with NV5, their engineer, and a second engineer. After having listened to NV5, they still felt it was significant, consulted with a second engineer, and determined that based on the geotechnical report, which had been submitted by NV5, that if the building department is consulted in order to deal with the structural challenges of this site, that we could mitigate that particular issue of the fault line. I want to bring to your attention that the geotechnical report that they used is now 1.5 years out of date. On the surface of that same geotechnical report, it says, if this report is more than 2 years old, do not, under any circumstances, rely on this report. The county planning department relied on a report that's, when submitted, was over 1 year old. I'm grateful for the Planning Commission. I'm grateful for all of the work that's been done to try to deal with this thing intelligently, but I'm very concerned that the massive undertaking of opening this mine is well beyond the risks associated with the rewards. I also just wanted to close by saying that if you will please take a look at a package that I've left for each of you that you may review that has these maps in them, as well as some information from the general plan. As you may know, the applicant has asked for a zoning change. It's currently zoned M1, which does allow for mining, but they have asked for an ME zoning, which will allow them to do things like almost triple the height limitation on site, thereby making the project even less compatible with what our general plan guidelines within Chapter 17 and the mineral extraction and in its general purpose call for in terms of rational future planning for our county. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charlie.
Well, hello again, and my name is Jim Baer. District 3.
Jim,
and
put your speaker down a little bit.
I follow these tall people.
Yeah, I know. Madam Clerk, yeah, thank you.
Anyway, I'm a resident of Grass Valley, ex-city planning commissioner, business owner, and veteran. So I want to say that I support the previous comments. I've been deeply involved in the research that is going into those, and really think they are valid and important. I do say that my comments right now are mine and do not represent any other organizations such as CEA Mine Watch. I'm leader of the Stop the Mine Task Force, and I represent that group. So I do have just a few random comments this morning. And one is I was very sincerely impressed with the board offsite that I attended in part. I was just absolutely delighted to see that citizens had 30 minutes to make their public comments. So it's just really a feel-good experience for the part of that I attended. Today, I just want to note that our input to you is extremely important, and I want to grumble a bit because we've been trying to speak to the Planning Commission, and we did have one chance so far this year, and I was the sixth speaker, I think, and at any rate, we ran out of our 15 minutes, and so I got off the hook. I didn't have to say anything, but fortunately, I had a written report to submit. So with that, I'm looking forward to the hearing that the Planning Commission will have hopefully in March sometime. So the next random point is just to offer to you that we are here as citizens to help, and sometimes our credentials are overlooked, and I want to say, we're MDs, scientists, engineers, real estate brokers, architects, longtime committed residents of this community who really care. And when you're active in the nonprofit area, you get to count the hours, and my team alone is pushing up to over 3,000 hours in the past year and a half working on this. So in my remaining 32 seconds, seconds, my goodness. I'd like to say one of the things my team is saying is for the hearing, we'd like to see a bigger venue. And so they're recommending the Don Baggett Auditorium. Very actionable, and I think that would help a lot. We're also asking that the planning department present a motion to both approve and then another motion to disapprove the motions that are put before them in the hearing.
Wrap it up, Jim, please.
I can't say how much I thank you for your time listening to us.
Thank you, Jim.
Hi, my name is Darcy Findeisen. I'm an IHSS worker, which means I'm an in-home care worker for the county. I was asked to come today to speak in behalf of IHSS workers. I belong to the union, and they're going to be discussing raises for the workers. I would like the community to know that, because I don't think people realize who we work with. We work with people that are really low-income people who have a lot of disabilities, mental and physical. They need a lot of help. The workers are very, very compassionate people. People that work at McDonald's make more money than we do, and we are dealing with people's lives, people that can't cope. We're counselors to them, we're everything to them. And I think they're going to be discussing raises for our workers, and I'm here to represent that they're talking about maybe only an 18-cent raise in the future, which is really not enough money for us. So if you can think about, I wish I had all day to talk about what we do for them, because it's just a ton. So I'm here to represent that for our workers, and please think about us and what we do for them. And hopefully we can get a little bit more than 18 cents an hour raise. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Darcy.
Got the contract here. Good morning, Board of Supervisors. Thank you for your time. I'm Paul Elias, 36-year resident of Western Nevada County. I've been around garbage all my professional career, and part of that has been here in Nevada County. I originally started working for Grass Valley Disposal, worked for waste management of Grass Valley, and that was before it was bought by USA Waste.
Paul, are you going to be talking about the contract that's, okay, go ahead.
But I am pleased that the contract is coming up, though it's taken 10 years and a lot of extra money, and that millions that we are not, that it's taken with inflation and construction costs, it's a shame that we're getting less and spending more money. My comment is, it's about the opening days of the transfer station. I don't know how many, if any of you have been out there on a Wednesday after it's been closed for 2 days. It is a nightmare out there. And as far as I'm concerned, it's abusive to the public. It's abusive to Nevada County businesses that, for whatever good reason, they do not subscribe to waste management service. So what I'm asking is to look into opening one more additional day, especially with the construction that's going to be taking place coming up, hopefully, in the spring. And there is nothing within the contract that says you cannot open an additional day. When I was with Grass Valley Disposal, when I was with Waste Management of Grass Valley, 1 day a week it was closed, and that was Monday. Since this new contract in 2012, for whatever reason, again, it is not specified in days of hours of operation what days are to be open at the transfer station. Secondly, there's nothing in the state permit, as I've gone back and forth with county staff on this, there's nothing in the state permit that does not allow one more day of opening. Yes, you may have to negotiate with Waste Management, but I'm sure a lot of these businesses that are backed up on Wednesdays, and I don't even know what it's like on the weekend. Anybody in this chamber right now, if you ask them, what's it like to go out to the transfer station, everybody just rolls their eyes, and this is a county facility. This is something that needs to be handled. And I know construction, it's going to be taken care of when we have it opened and we have all these different stalls and gatehouses and things like that. But something needs to be done right now, because it is, I'm surprised there isn't road rage out there, because it's, personally, I think it's deserving when you see the backup on McCourtney. The last thing, too, is that's a danger to have that traffic backed up onto McCourtney. So I would hope that the Solid Waste Committee in April will take this up and direct county staff to find out a way to open one more day a week. That's what I'm asking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Good morning. My name is Marion Blair, and I'm here. I live in District 3. I'm here to comment on the Idaho-Maryland mine mitigation measures. I wrote a letter for you, Lisa, that I'll turn in, but I'm going to have to abbreviate this because it's a little long. So I commented on the mitigation measures for impacts to the following that I thought were inadequate on the draft EIR of the IMM project: the delineated wetlands, both the regularly occurring native as well as listed plant and animal species, water quality of Wolf Creek, and concerns about heavy metals, and finally, noise impacts on humans and wildlife. For the sake of time, I will discuss only the first two. The wetlands, the DEIR says that mitigation measure 4.4,4-3 specifically requires the applicant to prepare a watercourse wetlands riparian area management plan, a draft of which was included. I'm going to skip down to mitigation measures have been modified in the final EIR to require that a qualified biologist shall be on site during all vegetation and ground disturbance activities that are within the vicinity. Also, going on to the water wetlands areas management plans, the applicant shall implement the mitigation measures identified as the aquatic resources management plan for the Centennial and Brunswick industrial sites. That management plan specifically says mitigation for encroachment into non-disturbance buffers, restoration in impacted areas within streams, zones, implementation of BMPs during construction and post-construction erosion control shall occur. So here is the response to my concern that these were not enough. As far as Centennial goes, majority of the wetlands they said, a majority of the wetlands will be removed as a result of the Centennial M1 remedial action plan.
please see Master Response for the cleanup project. So the EIR, the final EIR refers us to the Master Response 4, which merely states they are mitigating to less than significant impacts. So as far as the DEIR mitigation for the fill to wetlands, it says specifically it requires additional state and federal permitting prior to the fill of any jurisdictional waters. Negotiation with these agencies will determine avoidance minimization and compensatory mitigation requirements for project-related disturbance. I'm going to go into that for a minute because I did compensatory mitigation for 15 years at the Santa Clara Valley Water District. I worked in watersheds. These are all wetlands. And their response was not adequate. There is no attempt to describe what compensatory mitigation would
I know
go
3 minutes goes fast.
into effect.
Wrap
Okay,
it up,
I will
please.
wrap it up.
Okay.
At minimum, they should be mitigating in kind for wetlands, a 1-to-2 ratio of every plant species removed.
That's good. Thank
Two
you.
or
Thank
more
you.
shall be
You
planted.
can leave
I'm gonna
that with
turn
the
this in.
clerk too, okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Good job, Anita.
Happens all the time. I'm Anita Waldtuttle. I've lived in this area since 1989. And after 95 and a half years of living on this planet, I can no longer deal with complicated jabberwocky and prefer to respond with real-life situations. The first 20 years of my life were spent dealing with severe asthma in a pollen-infested Midwest, followed by multiple hospitalizations caused by extremely polluted air in a large, congested inner city. This all was topped by congestive heart failure, where I was resuscitated by a very skilled doctor who later confessed to me that he really had thought that I would be leaving the hospital feet first, if you know what that means. I have learned how important it is to have livable air. Now I live in a place that has air rated as F, with the possibility of it being degraded even more, and pay attention to articles related to pollution. I found this one I'd like to share with you today. Poor sleep can be traced to two widespread pollutants, nitrogen dioxide, traffic-related air pollution, and PM.2.5, which is fine particle pollution, which I'm sure you've heard a lot about in regard to asbestos. These two things disrupt sleep and decrease sleep efficiency, which is defined as a measure of the time spent actually sleeping as opposed to lying in bed awake. People with the highest PM.2.5 and nitrogen dioxide exposure are 50 to 60% more likely to have low sleep efficiency over a 5-year period compared to those with the lowest exposure. The greater your total pollution exposure, the higher your risk for cancer. Chronic exposure to air pollution over a longer period of time, however, may result in more chronic and serious conditions, including bronchitis, asthma, emphysema, accelerated aging of lung tissue redness and swelling, wheezing, shortness of breath, all of these resulting in premature death. In addition, high blood pressure, heart attack, and stroke result in decreased cognitive function. Another fact to be considered are developmental delays in children as a result of reproductive problems traceable to, guess what? Increased air pollution. More to add to the pot of problems related to reopening a stagnant mine. Thank you for your time and patience.
Thank you, Anita. Madam Clerk, do we have a caller online?
Yes, we do have a caller waiting. Can we bring the caller in, please?
Yeah, hi, board. This is Matthew Coulter.
Hi, Matthew.
Currently walking on East Main, breathing all the stuff that was just spoken about. Tire dust, all kinds of nasty stuff. from many vehicles that aren't even legal to be on the roads. Obviously, just by visual inspection. But connected to that is the fact that our local bus system is failing miserably. I understand we've got several new buses on order, but that doesn't mean maintenance for the older buses can go unattended. Also, the disturbances on the bus. Hospitality house clients, Spirit House clients, and I don't know if you're aware of this, that the bus does not go to Hospitality House anymore and use one of 3 covered bus stops in town. They turn around down below, down at CVS, because they won't go up there anymore. It's too dangerous for the drivers. So anyone from Hospitality House has to walk up the hill if they really want to get there, no matter how feeble, disabled, wheelchair, whatever the case may be. The covered bus stop at Hospitality House, they have taken over for years as their smoking room. So instead of giving things to people inappropriately, that are using them inappropriately, which brings me to the Rise Gold situation. I don't even know how it got to this place. Caltrans is just finishing the Colfax Avenue sinkhole project in Grass Valley. Now I've just given them a whole nother project that will be $1 million. Back Porch Market and their drainage they're in charge of, which is South Fork Wolf Creek, which is what Rise Gold wants to use to get rid of the water. It's failing. The walls are failing, falling into the creek. And no one looks beyond their property line at the effects. Can they keep the dust in? Can they manage the water? And when the system to evacuate it collapses, can they turn their system off and just say, oh, we can wait a month or two till you fix this? No. It's full steam ahead. I suggest you guys slow it down a bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. All right, is there any other public comment? Nobody else online, Madam Clerk? Very good. At this time, we will close the general public comment and go into our next agenda items, which are community presentations. And the first one we have today is the introduction of Grand Jury Awareness Month. I think we have members of the grand jury here. And what I'd like to do is, let's see, who we have Lloydine Lane is the foreman, right? Oh, Joe DeAndrea, foreman, okay. I'm going to read the resolutions first and then open it to comments and then have you guys come up and give some comments too, okay? And we're going to have a photo op too, right? So this is resolution number 23-060, resolution proclaiming February 2023 as Grand Jury Awareness Month in Nevada County. Whereas grand juries are crucial components of California's system of law, and whereas grand juries have been in existence since the adoption of California's original Constitution in 1849, and whereas grand juries are impaneled to act as an arm of the court, as authorized by the state constitution, to be a voice of the people and a conscience of the community, and whereas, like other California counties, Nevada County has a grand jury composed of individuals who dedicate their time for a full fiscal year, July 1st to June 30th, and whereas the primary duties of Nevada County grand juries are to investigate and report on local governmental operations, to ensure that their responsibilities are being fulfilled efficiently, honestly, and in the best interest of public. And whereas grand juries serve as a watchdog authority and are well suited to be effective investigation of local governments because they are independent bodies, operationally separate from the entities and officials they investigate. And whereas it is appropriate to provide a designated opportunity to recognize the efforts of those who have volunteered or are currently volunteering their time and service to advance the work of Nevada County Grand Jury. And whereas the reward of being one of the grand jurors is the satisfaction received working with fellow residents of the county to improve local government for all of us. Now, therefore, be it hereby resolved that the County of Nevada Board of Supervisors does hereby proclaim the month of February 2023 as Grand Jury Awareness Month. And we will pass and adopt this at the conclusion here, I assume. And I want to thank you guys personally. I know when we get called into for interrogations, it can be a little nerve-wracking, but we really do appreciate the work that you do. And I'd like to open it, Sue. You, any comments?
No, just that, yeah, I remember my first time, so I can remember it was a hot seat. No, really. You guys do an amazing job. I think we find some of the things that come back really make great improvements, and I think that's part of what your job is. And I appreciate the dedication that goes in at the time. A year is a lot of time and reports and investigating that goes along with this. It's really very interesting. And for those of you that have done it more than 1 year, numerous years, thank you for your service. It truly is a gift to the community.
I remember never getting called into the grand jury until about my 12th year in on the city council, and I was really disappointed because I wanted to sit in the hot seat. So anytime you want to talk to me, feel free to call me in. But thank you all for the hard work and dedication, having, spoken with you a few times, realizing how much research you do into all the work that goes on with the grand jury. I really appreciate it. So thank you for your service, and look forward to working with you in the future.
Do you look forward to that? Oh, okay. Heidi?
Thank you. Yeah, the work you do is a critical part of a functioning democracy. Oversight and investigations and making sure something isn't getting missed. I know also that you guys spend thousands of hours doing research and reports, and that is so much appreciated. It's helpful, it's helpful when you actually get to something that we already know might be a problem and then come up with great suggestions. I think sometimes it's hard for you to determine which things are misinformation coming from the community and which aren't. Makes your job very difficult, but it's valuable and essential. So thank you.
Artie?
Yeah, thank you. I've always appreciated the public transparency element that comes with it, so that people understand there's a group that's non-biased and independent and out there looking at watching government does, small and large, and I appreciate it and how they all interconnect. And I'd like to mention the amount of work you put in is incredible. Having recently talked with a grand jury about that, it's a lot. So thanks for your commitment to the community, and look forward to seeing you, I think, in a couple days. Take care.
It truly is a commitment, but thank you very much. Waiting, Joe, would you come on up? And you can use that one, or you can sit either way, either one. Go ahead, Joe. And you can have all the time you want.
Okay, so I've limited my comments to 2 hours, if that's okay. No, thank you. Again, my name's Joe D'Andrea. I'm the current foreperson of the Nevada County Grand Jury, and it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for the recognition for the Nevada County Grand Jury again this year. All of our jurors put in incredible amounts of time, effort, and energy helping Nevada County become a better place. My father, and I've heard this since I was like 5 years old, my father always told me, always leave an organization better than you found it. Well, this year's jury is doing exactly that. It's an incredible jury we have this year. And I really appreciate all the work that they're doing. Outreach efforts this year, I'll just give you a brief recap of what we're doing, things that we can actually tell you about, okay? We're in the process of forming a California Grand Jury Association Nevada County chapter to assist and promote future grand juries in Nevada County with recruitment of new jurors, participating in community outreach efforts, events, Speakers Bureau opportunities, and media outlets to get the word out about the Nevada County Grand Jury. Currently, 28 of the 58 counties in California have a grand jury outreach, a grand jury association chapter. So we are hoping to be number 29, and we're in the process this year of putting that together. And that would really entail former jurors and current jurors to get out there and help the active duty jurors in promoting the grand jury, and especially in recruitment. And recruitment is oftentimes difficult. In a county our size, you don't have a lot of folks to choose from, and so it makes it rather difficult. So it's going to help us an awful lot to do that. We're providing a 3-session OLLI course, the OSHA Life Learning Institute at Sierra College this year. We had our first one yesterday at the college. The Civil Grand Jury Democracy's Watchdog is the name of the course. And Lloydine and I yesterday had our first session with them. It went extremely well. So again, part of the outreach that we're trying to do for the county and hopefully get some recruits in from this class. So as you can see, lots going on this year, in addition to the important work that the jury is mandated to do by law every week. So thank you again for this recognition. The jury appreciates all you do for Nevada County, and we certainly appreciate all that you do for us in the grand jury. It's a partnership, and one that we really appreciate what you guys are doing for us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
I would like to second, I'm Lloydine Lane, four-person pro tem of the jury. I'd just like to second everything that Joe said. And again, thank you for the support that the county provides the grand jury. It's very appreciated. Another thought is that we talk to a lot of people that make this county run, and we are so impressed with the quality and the commitment of the employees of this county. So it's a great place to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Lloydine. Is there any public comment on the grand jury? Madam Clerk, do we have any callers?
I don't see any callers.
Okay. Well, then we'll close the public comment portion of it, and I'll bring it back to the board. Any further comments? And if not, we're ready for a motion.
I'll make the motion, please.
And I'd second it.
Motion Supervisor Hall, seconded Supervisor Hook. Madam Clerk, roll call.
District 4.
District 4, yes.
District 3.
Yes.
District 1.
Yes.
District 5.
Yes.
And District 2.
Yes. Then we will I just wanted to point out, oftentimes this item just comes as a consent item, and it's really great having you guys here and really reporting and hopefully recruiting a bit too, because I know how difficult it is. It truly is a commitment. So we'll do a photo op down in front, okay?
And real quick, though,
Oh, yeah.
maybe real quickly, they should just give an announcement where to go and look to be. I mean, since this is Awareness Month, maybe it'd be an opportunity to say, where do you find to get onto the grand jury? Where do you come and apply?
Why don't you go ahead and do that, Joan? While you're doing that, we'll walk down front.
Okay, so people can go to, I think it's nccourts.net is where you can go on the website and find application and fill out the application online, and then we get those because we have a connection to the Superior Court, and we get all of those that people sign up, and that's one way where people can go and sign up for that. So, and also they can, just come and fill out an application and drop it in the box or put it in our mail slot in the mailroom. So those are 3 easy ways to do it. Thank you.
All right. Our next item is, let me get my agenda here, sorry. This is approval of Connecting Points informational presentation recognizing February 11th as 211 Day in Nevada County, California. And I don't know who's presenting. If you can give us your names, that would be great.
Certainly. Absolutely. Good morning, Chair Schofield. My name is Sharice Jones. Good morning to you all. Thank you for the opportunity to come and present on the work that is being done by 211. Like I said, my name is Sharice Jones. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Connecting Point, and I'm joined by Lindsay Gordon, our 211 Program Manager. Okay, so to start off, we thought that we would give you a little bit of information regarding Connecting Point. We're celebrating our 20th year of service this year. So originally we were founded in 2003 to offer in-home support services to Nevada County. So helping individuals that are aging or have a disability of some sort so that they can stay within their home. So fast forward a few years to 2011, 211 came in-house to Connecting Point. We really felt that it was a good fit with our mission to serve those individuals in our community and helping them with resources in our community. And then in 2015, we brought in CalWorks, so helping people with barrier removal in Nevada County. And then more recently, we have added disaster navigation services for individuals affected by the river fire. And then more recently, Youth Job Corps is a program that we've recently started at Connecting Point. But that's a little bit of history about Connecting Point. We'll jump into some discussion around 211 and what INR is. So INR means information and referrals. So we offer a variety of health, social, and community programs to individuals within our community. Many of our callers need assistance with basic needs such as housing, food, childcare, transportation, health care. So they can simply call 211 for those types of services. We also have many other opportunities for people calling for maybe they need a support group of some sort. We can link them with that, as well as volunteer opportunities and many more. And then what really makes 211 unique in our community is the partnerships that we have with our local CBOs, which is pretty unique for a 211. So working with the continuum of care, Freed, adult services here at Nevada County, and helping individuals calling into 211 to help link them to those services here in Nevada County. And eventually hoping to make electronic referrals to those partners. So let me move into how can you connect with 211. So there's a variety of options. So you can simply dial 211. We also have an 800 number, and we also have texting capabilities. So for the same call agents that are answering the phone, you can text them and be able to communicate with them in real time. So that's really unique to our call center. So I will pass it over to Lindsay Gordon, our program manager, who will go into more depth about what 211 has to offer, the growth that we've experienced in the last few years, as well as disaster services more recently.
All right, so I'm going to start out talking about the growth we've experienced from the year 2020 up until 2022, so just the end of this last year. You can see in 2021, demand for our services grew exponentially throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. Especially when vaccines rolled out in January 2021. We have served since 2020 as the COVID-19 hotline for Nevada County Public Health and continue to do so today. We are also the entry point for those experiencing homelessness to get access to emergency shelter, to get on the long-term housing waiting list and get connected with housing programs, as well as additional resources. During this time frame expressed here in this slide, 2020 to 2022, Nevada County experienced a number of natural disasters, as I'm sure we all know. The river fire, the Rices fire, winter storms this year and last year. And you can also see on this slide, we have our follow-ups and the number of text messages, which the increase is right in line with the disasters starting in 2021. All right, next we have kind of a timeline of the disasters or different, extreme events we've experienced since 2020. So starting at the end of 2019, we had our first, maybe not our first, I think our second public safety power shutdown, which always increases caller demand. 2020, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic hit. Then we had a wildfire. Then we had extreme heat, another wildfire, another PSPS. We had a flood watch. We had COVID-19. We had a couple more fires, and then more recently, flood watch, winter storm, lots of fallen trees and stuff like that. So in disaster, we work with our partners in emergency services to provide the public with information on evacuation, shelters, transportation, to kind of alleviate 911 from those types of calls so that people can call us for that information versus tying up the emergency lines. We collect information from our callers, data about needs, met and unmet needs, that we share out twice daily with the Office of Emergency Services. The goal is to help inform development of programs on the spot to address prevalent immediate needs in disaster. We have developed an escalation process with Nevada County Adult Services as well as Freed for certain qualified individuals who have extremely urgent needs to be assessed and immediately connected with services such as a generator, gas for a generator, or perhaps they need a hotel because they have medical conditions that make them susceptible to temperature or cannot be without electricity. We have, in addition, reached out to our partner 211s within the Northern California region, and we've shared best practices, lessons learned, tips, tricks, tools of the trade. And out of that, we've stood up our very first of its kind Northern California 211 mutual aid agreement. And so what that allows us to do is call on experienced professional call agents from other 211s to support us when we have disasters in our area. And likewise, they can call on us to do the same. And so that's been very helpful. We actually got to use that in a recent event. I forget which one. I think it might have been the mosquito fire. So yeah, that finally, we are a strong supporter of the COAD model, which is Community Organizations Active in Disaster. And we are the kind of the home of the manager of the new Tahoe Truckee area COAD, Ann Rarick. So we're really excited about that and the potential to create more COADs in the area because, certain things in disaster is just too much for CBOs and agencies to handle. And so kind of getting the different CBOs that are part of the COAD to volunteer and help with these things will make it a lot easier to distribute things like food or, just welfare checks even. So, next slide. All right, and so this one is just a sample essentially of 2020 to current needs by zip code. So the color-coded map is by zip code, and we're working on kind of fine-tuning and developing this. You'll see not only in Grass Valley, but the other areas represented, Tahoe Truckee and North San Juan, that the top three needs are all healthcare, housing, and disaster services, which is very representative of the time period we're looking at. But when you get down below those top three needs, you start to see more of a mix. And so this can be really helpful in seeing who needs what where, and the development of resources and services to address specific needs in specific parts of our community. So with that, we thank you so much for letting us share with you today. Yeah, appreciate the opportunity to talk and share about 211 Day.
Thank you, Lindsay. Lisa, you want to start with comments?
It's overwhelming, the number of people that you serve, and we're really grateful that we have you here, and what a valuable service that our county provides to the community. And hopefully we are letting as many people know about it as possible. I know I certainly make referrals to you on a, not daily basis, but probably a monthly basis. So thanks for all the hard work. Appreciate it.
You.
Heidi?
Yeah, thank you. I don't know, did you have to hire more people when COVID and the disasters happened?
Yes, we definitely have hired on additional staff,
Right.
but more recently with the mosquito fire that affected a portion of Placer County, we really leaned on mutual aid call agents in our Northern California territory. So we leaned on, I think, 3 different call agencies that really helped in that disaster.
And it worked really well because, you know, instead of in the past, we've used disaster service workers to quickly train them and get them on the phone. But using professional call agents, it was so much easier. They used the same software as us, so onboarding was very quick and they knew how to handle the calls.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I think what you're doing is invaluable. We couldn't do our jobs if we didn't have you out there answering some of those calls. And I'm intrigued by this first category of healthcare. Is that basically people who might be calling 911 for issues, but they're not really emergent? So I'm just curious how, I'm surprised to see that that is the highest category and wondering what types of calls those are.
Yeah, that's a great question. The reason, and I can say nearly across the board, that we see healthcare as number one in the years represented is due to COVID. And because any COVID information, COVID vaccines, that all fell under healthcare. Now, there are other healthcare referrals. We not only do we refer people to Medi-Cal, we also apply people for Medi-Cal through our Navigator program. We make referrals to, low cost or no cost services at a large. We prefer to have accessible resources for the community. We make a lot of referrals to Western Sierra. We also have I'm a little long-winded, I apologize, but we have a program called Ready to Grow that focuses on families with children 0 to 5. And so for that program, we have a ton of pediatricians and, children's dentists in the database. So you'll see healthcare for those types of resources, but definitely why you're seeing this as number one across the board right now is due to COVID. It's usually housing is number one across the board.
Ah, that's fascinating. Well, it sounds like you are in a way it looks sort of that you are getting the word out, or we all are because of the numbers, but do you have posters in laundromats and grocery stores and things? Do you have posters with the number and your services, or where do you get that information out?
We participate in many tabling events. Anything we're invited to, we'll participate. We have rack cards, collateral that we can share electronically or hard copies. I believe we have things at the Brighton Green Service Office, materials at the Brighton Green Service Office. And I certainly hand my card out. I heard someone just the other day at the pharmacy asking for free COVID tests, and they were like, we're all out. And I gave them my card and said, call 211 and we can get you connected. So, not to eavesdrop, but yes, we definitely, spread the word through disaster, especially. We're pushed out on social media a lot by the county, and any opportunity that we get to table, we will.
Okay, and sorry, Chair, one more question. This is fascinating. Where do you refer people who are calling for housing?
Sure. So we are the entry point for what's called coordinated entry, and that is our HMIS, Housing Management Information System, where we track who is experiencing homelessness, where they're staying, whether it be in shelter or completely unhoused. And from there, they are assigned based on a number of factors, maybe their age, maybe disabilities, a vulnerability score. And that vulnerability score sort of determines how quickly they will get connected with a housing organization. But we get a release of information when we go through coordinated entry that allows us to then share their information with housing providers that are part of the COC. So we're talking, the home team with Brendan. We're talking AMI, various agencies in Placer, and they then choose people from that list based on vulnerability. We also work with emergency housing vouchers as well, which are also awarded from that list. So it basically creates a long-term list.
So you actually walk them through, enter the data into the
Yes.
HMIS. I'm familiar with the HMIS.
Exactly.
Enter the data, and then do they provide you a way to get back in touch with them, and then you pass that on to the agencies?
So we get an ROI, a release of information at the time. We take them through coordinated entry. We are also the coordinated entry or HMIS administrator for both Placer and Nevada counties. So Tammy, who is the administrator, she works very closely with all of the housing organizations in the COC. We meet weekly, sometimes bi-weekly, but should be weekly. And we kind of talk about the top 20 people on the list and who they're working with and are they housed in special cases. And we meet bi-weekly about the emergency housing vouchers and awarding them and making sure that when time runs out in September 2023, that those vouchers are in the hands of people who can maintain them.
So just to get to that last point, how do you reach back out to them to get them a voucher, or when you find something? Does that go through our system, our county system?
It goes through the county system. So it's going to be the housing provider that reaches out, although there are, we do complete a number of follow-ups. We focus on people who are in crisis, have food instability, and seniors, but certainly many of our homeless callers fall into those categories. Lots of coordinated entry calls will have a crisis element to them, and so in those cases, we follow up as well. Now, we're not going to follow up necessarily with a solution for housing aside from getting them into a shelter. We can definitely get them into the shelter, Hospitality House in particular in Nevada County, but it's going to be the housing providers themselves that reach out and, however the program works. I've done Housing First training, so there are some programs that have a certain term of case management requirement, for someone to maintain the housing, but those providers will reach out to the clients.
Thank you so very much. It's just fascinating. What a critical resource you are for us here. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Lindsay, and thanks for being here today. I just had a couple of quick questions. Wow, with 2021, wow, right? That was a big deal. I think everybody's just kind of realizing how the resources that went out during that period, so thank you for sticking with it. It must have been a lot of work. When you get calls, do you get calls or referrals for substance use disorder or people struggling with drug and alcohol? And if you do, where do you send them?
Absolutely. So, that's very common. That's actually, it's common that we get calls with that as the caller's stated need, meaning that's what they're asking for help with. It's also common that we go through coordinated entry with someone, and that's one of the questions that we ask, and they identify as having substance use disorder. And so at that point, we'll offer resources. Granite Wellness is one of the resources that we refer to. We have, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, various inpatient and outpatient models of treatment. And so, we kind of meet them where they're at. If they're ready to test out an AA meeting, we'll get them the list of where the meetings are. If they're ready to look straight to inpatient, we may refer Granite Wellness. We also have medical assisted treatment resources like Aegis. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it's near the hospital on Catherine Way. It's a methadone clinic that helps with people who have opiate use disorder, and they provide maintenance medication that allows people to function in society normally without, breaking the addiction cycle. And so, I don't think it's always a long-term fix. They often taper people off. But yeah, we have a variety of options and depending on, I think we even have some gambling addiction resources in there, if I remember
Great.
correctly.
Yeah, it sounds very comprehensive. Thank you.
Yeah.
I had no idea that you
Yeah.
had that connection to our service community, so thank you.
We have, just to kind of elaborate a little bit further, we have over 1,500 agencies in our database and over 3,000 resources.
Wow. One quick question. Truckey's numbers are really high in comparison to some of the really rural areas in the county, like North San Juan. And I think you must be doing something right on the outreach in that community.
Trying.
So I just want to say thank you so much for doing that, but maybe just looking at how to get the word out in other areas of the county, in West County essentially, because it looks like you're really doing it right in Truckee, Tahoe. So thank you so much for doing that. And then thanks for being part of the COAD. And I talked to Ann and we got connected with OES. And so we have our own new COAD in East County, which is awesome that you're a part of. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Lou?
Well, I think everyone kind of covered it, but, we got to watch this in action, I think, since my first year on here. And we had the fires, we had PSPS, we've had Snowmageddon. I mean, just so many things. And I think as well and good as all of our websites are at sending people around for county services, you guys kind of made that simple for people. You guys could hook them up with all those connections, and it just is truly valuable. And when we could turn to, don't call 911, call 211. And I know you guys got inundated with those with the first year. It was kind of crazy there for a bit. And it's just amazing to watch how you guys have really grown and take on such a huge role in our community that way. So I've been down there a couple times to the office, and I'm always just amazed, because that doesn't even count the services where people come in for job searching. And there's so much there going on all the time. It kind of never slows down. So truly appreciate the work that's going there and all the folks that work and spend time with individuals from every walk of life. So really, really thank you very much.
And it is true, we think of you in the extreme circumstances, whether it be wildfire, heat, whatever it might be. And then I think we don't realize just how involved you are with the not only the county, but the community as a whole. So you're a great organization to have out there, and I thank you for that. Is there any public comment on this Mr. French?
I'm Lee French, and I'm from the greater Alta Sierra area. I was the Neighborhood Watch Block Captain Coordinator for many years and developed block captains in various areas, not only greater Alta Sierra, but other areas. In making my presentation to inform these people as to their obligations and so on, I would stress 211. I was very happy to see 211 there. It did help to cut down on the calls that I got. People are often confused, what do? I have a situation. And so in developing the block captains areas, I would stress 211 just to make sure that we could cut down on the problems that any of the other departments might have. And it really got them directed right into who they needed to go to. One failure I had was somebody lost something here at the county and didn't know where to pick up lost and found. And I don't think 211 knew either, but just something that we could solve, just a little bit of footwork. And we did get that solved. But then, that's such a far-out question that I don't know how you folks can handle everything. So 211 to me is a backbone of the neighborhood. It needs to get out more to the homeowners associations. If they could maybe use your symbol on their newsletters or at their meetings or whatever, and to promote 211 just in a simple way, it would probably cut down on their efforts also and serve their community a lot better. So I want to thank you very much. We have to stress that it's not for emergencies, but 211 is there to give you information and direct you into the right area to get the information that you so dearly need. So anyway, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Madam Clerk, is there any callers online?
There's no callers online right now.
Very good. I'll bring it back to the board for further comments, and if none, a motion to accept the presentation, and I think we can do a photo op too with these guys.
I'll move to accept the presentation.
I'll second that.
Motion Supervisor Bullock, seconded Supervisor Hook. Madam Clerk?
You can do a roll call vote if you'd like.
Oh.
Oh, excuse me, a
Oh, we
voice
can do a
vote.
voice vote.
Excuse
All
me.
those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nobody. Unanimous. Let's do a photo op.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next agenda item is our consent calendar. These items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. The Board of Supervisors will act upon them at one time without discussion. Any board member may request that an item be removed from the consent calendar for discussion. Members of the public wishing to ask questions or hear discussion on items listed under the consent agenda may raise their concerns to the board members prior to the consent agenda being introduced. Supervisors will take the concerns under consideration and decide if there is adequate reason to remove the item from consent. Supervisor, any items? Is there any public comment? Madam Clerk?
There's no callers on consent.
Very good. Then I think we'll close the public comment portion of this, and we will ask for a motion.
I would make a motion that we approve the consent items.
Motion Supervisor Swarthout,
I'll second.
seconded Supervisor Hall. Madam Clerk?
District 4,
District 4, yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 1,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
and District 2.
Yes. We're down to announcements, guys. Anybody prepared?
Sure.
Sue is. Sue, you want to go ahead? while we all look at our phones.
Okay, so first off, our workshop was incredible. I think we spent a lot of time preparing and getting ready to work for that. And I think it was really successful working on that. And then also had a great meeting with PG&E, our regional rep, just kind of catching up with what's going on in my district and the still issues and where we're going, and get an update on how they're changing their vegetation management program. I think it's going to be really beneficial to everyone, that it's kind of dialing down into one organization doing all the work instead of it being really divided through many different divisions. I went to ethics training, and Kit did our county council did a great job. We had a pretty full room for that. It was really interesting. Had a good meeting with Twin Ridges School District in collaboration with the sheriff and staff and Supervisor Bullock. And I think we've off to a good start, just learning about what that district needs and some of the ideas that we come up to have some benefit. And I'll let Hardy talk about that a little bit later. Attended a Farm Bureau meeting, was really interested and met of course, it was fun to be introduced. Andrew Trigg is the new CEO from the fairgrounds, and look really forward to working with him. Mountain Counties Water Association, when I had my first meeting on Friday, we installed 3 new members to the board. I went over a strategic plan and different items like that. I really look forward to having my first in-person meeting. It was a Zoom meeting this time. Met with the Coalition for Compassion and had a great listening session with some of their ideas, and appreciate our CDA director attending that meeting and really keeping some of the questions in a good spot. Let's see, had a couple of very important meetings with Rough and Ready and Pin Valley on the fire issues that we have down there, as far as the departments and consolidation and where we're going. And then this weekend I attended a living room conversation that was hosted by the Democratic women at our Madeline Helling Library. It was really interesting and enjoyed being a part of that. And it was kind of fun to sit up on a panel with 5 people from so many different areas of interest and have common ground. I really enjoyed how you can have a conversation and agree to disagree. So I love that. And then working with North San Juan on a couple more noise issues. That was huge. Had a couple of, it was a long weekend, let's put it that way. And with numerous phone calls. And so that's probably enough for me.
Okay. Lisa?
Okay, I think Heidi told me, be prepared for this, and I did not listen to you, but I'll do my best to. I continue to go through the onboarding process with all the department heads, and I am very grateful for all of the education that I'm getting. I ask a lot of questions, so when you schedule me for 45 minutes and an hour, you need to know it usually lasts an hour and a half, so thank you for your patience with working with me. I too attended the board workshops, which were very informative, probably left me with more questions than answers, but I'm working through that process. I've had several meetings with the city of Grass Valley, just as the probably biggest stakeholder group in my district, just to work on what's going on, and they're doing a capital improvement meeting on Thursday afternoon that I'm going to try and attend. I also had a really busy Saturday. I started the day with Sue and the group that the Democratic Women's Club event, and Sue did fantastic. I think I think people were there because there's just so much disruption in the political process and just how people deal with each other when they disagree. So it was really nice to see a group of people who were so civilized, and it was really interesting. I actually learned a few things about Sue that I didn't know. One community event that I attended a few weeks ago, there's 4 Rotary clubs in Western County that all got together, and Grass Valley Rotary, which I'm a member of, South County Rotary, which Supervisor Schofield is a member of, and they made a presentation to Bright Futures for Youth. The groups got together and donated $40,000 for their new expansion that they're doing for NEO over there. So it was a great presentation. I've also been over there with the tour, and see what they're doing for the kids in our community is fantastic. So it's been a busy, let's see, today's my fifth week. So it's been a busy 5 weeks. So
Marty?
That's great, you're getting it all done. Yeah, thanks for the workshop. The workshop was awesome. I thought that, I've attended, I guess, 3 of them. I was there for a year before I was seated in this seat, but great, tons of content. You compress a whole bunch of work into 3 days, and I was speechless for a day or 2 after that, but thank you so much. It was awesome. Met with the Ranch House. I don't know what, there's a name for that, but anyway, talked to them about housing, and that was great. And Tom Durkin and some of the other folks that are assembled there have been in touch with me, and I'm pointing them in your direction, so all the faith that that'll be handled. We convened an I-80 traffic impact focus group, which was kind of an offshoot of our CCC group, and it includes the town, Caltrans, CHP, Placer County, Nevada County, and somebody else that I'm missing. It's gotten to be a critical situation. There's a lack of ability to kind of move around town, and it's happening. Actually, it happened yesterday again. So it's hard to have our community be prepared in any format for something that may come up because you just can't get around anymore. And then we're also convening a resort leadership group. So North Star and Palisades, along with the counties, are going to get together and talk about how private industry is contributing to that effect up there. So we're working on that. Met with the Cannabis Alliance to talk about their 23 ledge priorities. Another good meeting with them. I met with Nevada County Contractors Association and CAT, both on concerns that they have regarding building ordinance, permits, planning. Much of it didn't have to do with the county, but more of kind of a regional town-county interface perspective. We had our Truckee River Basin Water Managers Group that I'm actually going to try and get Erica into from our county, get her into that group as well. We had a Climate Transformation Alliance meeting, I think, in that time period, that Ariel is a member of that group and contributing a bunch of county insight to. And then Chair Schofield and I had our first budget subcommittee meeting on a couple of items, so I'm learning a lot there. Look forward to the work. There's a lot of it, I think. Had meetings with staff on Fire Safe Council and how Fire Safe Council is handled in Nevada County and Eastern and Western County, and look forward to working with everybody to make Fire Safe Council as good as it possibly can be and get as much resources as we can out the door. Doing some work on workforce housing in Hobart Mills. That's the administrative lease with the Forest Service, so leasing some property from the Forest Service. And it's really pretty cool to see the public-private partnership potential. That's 3 Ps. Like moving in that direction, it could be really cool, I think. So we're excited about that. Met with the new development company looking at putting some housing in at the rail yard in Truckee. So the rail yard and the Artist Loft are all that big center balloon track development. So they're looking at building some more houses there. The Middle Martis Restoration Project kicked off with the Truckee River Watershed Council. And we met with the Watershed Council and the Forest Service. We share some roads. The Mesa road systems in Boca, Stampede, and Prosser are all shared between the Forest Service and the county. So we're trying to figure out what role the county may play in being a contributor to that big project. There's a lot of funding for that. Met with the town of Truckee, trying to talk about what are we going to do after Measure V? How do we work together? How can we make sure that we're connected and communicating properly on that, particularly the fire and those pieces. And then chief, we have a new police chief, Danny Renfro, and he's actually a Western County local. I think a lot of people know Danny, and he is awesome, and he's now the Truckee police chief. So I think we're gonna see a lot of integration between the sheriff's office and the Truckee PD. I'm excited. Had a presentation on quantified ventures, I think it is, innovative financing for climate and recreation type things, bonding, that Erica put together. It was awesome. And then, like Sue was saying, we met with Twin Ridges School District, which they face a unique set of problems because they're so far away and they kind of overlap in our 2 districts, District 4 and 5. Mine coming from Washington on one side and Sue's coming from the Ridge side. But I'm really excited. I left that meeting thinking that there's a whole bunch of ways we can connect using their facilities to serve our constituents in that area and then also supporting them at the same time. We had our CCC meeting. Had a couple library meetings. There's a new housing hub concept in Truckee and Tahoe. It's been spearheaded by what used to be the North Tahoe Resort Association, NLTRA. It's now the North Tahoe Community Alliance. And I'm going to kick that down to Mike Dent and some other people to look at that and check it out and see if it's something we're interested in working with. And then Truckee Park and Rec, Steve Randall retired. Everybody knows Steve. I think he's actually doing some work for us. And the new GM, his name's Sven. He's been there for 5 years. Great guy. Had breakfast with him yesterday, and he's really excited about the partnership and some of the things we're doing on recreation, our recreation master plan, which I think we're going to connect on. And then I just wanted to mention, last thing, the board book. I had a lot of questions on the board book, and so I always like to say that staff responded to all of my technical questions on the board book, and sometimes the public may not hear those questions, but there's a lot of content in that book, and the people up here do a lot of preparation on that, and I just wanted to let everybody know that if you're wondering why the consent calendar goes so quickly, it's because all those questions got asked offline. And then last night, finally, I talked to the Truckee Dems Club, and what I did is I actually took our Board of Supervisors workshop presentation. I presented districts 1 through 4 to them to show them what's happening in the rest of the county, and so that was a good opportunity for them to see what's going on everywhere else, because they keep pretty good tabs on what's going on in District 5. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Heidi?
I'm going to keep mine kind of short. Hey, you guys packed it in.
We have 2 minutes between you.
Okay, good. That's all right. No, I'll just focus on a couple of things. So in the beginning of January, I spent a lot of time on the ranch house, just tons and tons of time, understanding it, working with staff, working with the community. So I'm grateful that we were able to get all those issues dealt with and to the best of our ability. Also spent a lot of time planning for the workshop, and again, thank you to the staff for an incredible job. I think we got a lot done there. Started some conversations that we probably need to continue. I've been tracking what's going on with CSAC and NACO, so I did have a week off, recovering from surgery, and so I was not attending some meetings during that week plus, but I am tracking what's happening. CSAC had their board meeting. Everything they looked at, I thought was, they're looking at recommendations, what they're going to be recommending for legislation. It all looks in alignment with Nevada County, except for one question I have on PILT funds, which is going to go to NACO, and I'm working on that. So if anybody wants to know more about that, I can talk to them offline. And then I had just a lot of calls and emails from constituents, and I just want to give a shout out again to staff that I always lean on staff for the background when I get a question, and they're always responsive and thorough and get back to the constituents as well. And I can see right there, Tricia and David Garcia, you get a lot of my my constituent questions. Thank you for being so thorough and prompt. I really appreciate that. And then I'm starting to dig in on the Rise Gold mine issue that's going to be coming to us later. So there's a lot of information to dig through and understand, and I'll probably be working on that from here on out, and that's about it.
Thank you, Heidi. Just very quickly, I think the most important thing that all of us sat through was our planning session, as everybody mentioned. And I'd like to point out that I wrote an article on this for South County News, and what I found was you just can't put the feeling that comes out of that meeting into words. I just felt so good about how well it's planned for and how well the county is really doing. I just walked away from that 3-day session with a very proud, satisfying feeling that came out of it, and knowing that we have set our priorities and that that's what we'll be working on in this coming year. So great job to Allison and the staff. Attended an ERC meeting in which we had George Shurik, our new building director, and he was one of the panelists there, and I thought that went quite well. And I also sat in on ethics training again, and Kit, you did an excellent job there. I attended a Nevada County Sheriff's Office swearing in ceremony, and I think she does that like every quarter. And if you have an opportunity, I think there were 3 of us there, but it really is kind of rewarding to watch that and see how new recruitments come in and how they're respected and the promotions that come with it too. And then just for the board's information, we did have the housing group that came for public comment last time, and Mr. Durkins was also at our planning session. And Sue and I and Tricia did meet with them yesterday. So at this point, it's kind of in our court as to how we want to proceed, but you guys will be kept up on that, just so you know that we have met with them. And that's all I have. We're 2 minutes beyond our public hearing. So thank you, boards. So at this time, what I'd like to do, are we okay? Everybody okay? Okay. I'd like to introduce Phoebe Bell, who will be introducing our next agenda item. Maybe I should announce that. It's a public hearing to approve funding for the purchase of certain real property described 4.760 acres of real property with a single-family home located at 1673 Auburn Road, California. Do you want the assessor's number, Madam Clerk? Do I need to read that in?
I think you're good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Phoebe?
Thank you so much, and good morning, Chair Schofield, members of the board. Phoebe Bell, Behavioral Health Director, and I'm here today to give you a little bit more background on this item, the Insight Respite Center, which is a really critical component of the Behavioral Health Department's sort of system of care. So a little bit of history on what respite is and how it came to be. This is really the embodiment of a vision held by a number of community members, many of whom were consumers of our services, had experienced their own mental health crises, and really understood firsthand what it can look and feel like to feel not well and to know that you need a chance to regroup and to not have a lot of options of how to do that. And they really together came up with a vision of a peaceful place where people could go when they're experiencing symptoms that are making them feel not well or verging towards a mental health crisis, and be able to kind of step back from the stressors of daily life and get the support and space and care that they need to stabilize and do well. And out of that vision came this idea of Insight Peer Respite Center. We quickly recognized that Turning Point, who's one of our really ideal and great contractors and providers, really embodied a lot of the vision of the Insight Respite Center, which is really about a client-driven experience where we believe in the strengths of people to determine their own path and to take care of themselves and to identify what they need for support during difficult times. And that Turning Point would be a perfect provider to be able to run this program for us. The department then began looking for grant funds, and in 2015, grant funds had been secured, a facility was identified, and the Insight Respite Program opened its doors and quickly became just an invaluable part of our system of care. One of the core elements of Insight is that it's peer-run, and by peer, we mean people with lived experience. And so everybody that works there understands what it feels like to have a tough chapter. And honestly, most of us do in general. But for these folks, they have training about how to support others who are having a hard time, how to be there and give them the care they need, but also give them the space they need to become more stable and kind of regain their wellness. And since the doors opened, respite is rarely empty. We typically have 4 people, there's 4 beds, and we typically have 4 people in those beds almost always, and we serve about 70 people a year. People can stay for up to 2 weeks, well, up to 4 weeks if needed, but typically about 14 days, and we use it often for somebody who's on the verge of a mental health crisis or somebody who's been hospitalized and is stepping down from that level of care but not quite ready to return home to the stressors they might face there, and instead to have a peaceful, calm place to go. The reason we're here in front of you with this hearing about the purchase of a property is, since its original location, we've struggled with finding a permanent home for respite. We, as a rental facility, they twice lost its location within an 18-month stretch, and the Turning Point staff really had to scramble to find another location that was an appropriate place for this facility. And we ran the risk of not being able to find that place and not having this resource available to our community anymore. And that really taught us that we want a permanent location for respite so that we can count on it as a part of our system of care. In addition, it's not just any location that will work for this facility. Part of what makes it restful and calming is the location, being in a more private, secluded, rural type setting, which is what we've always been able to find, and what we currently have with the location where it's at is really a critical part of the program. And so when the opportunity to purchase the existing location where they've been operating for a year and a half became available, it just seemed like the perfect time to really solidify this resource for the long haul in a location that's working really well for a program that's really critical. And I've invited today some of our great Turning Point partners. We're going to hear first from Teresa Hodges, who's the director of the Respite Program, and then from Morgan Johnson, who's a peer supporter there. And then we also have other Turning Point leadership here as well, if needed. Teresa's going to talk to us a little bit about how Respite operates, what happens there.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. I'm Teresa Hodges. I'm the program director of Insight Respite Center. I have been with Insight Respite since 2016. And in that time, I have had the absolute privilege and honor of being part of watching people change. You know, as Phoebe mentioned, we are 100% peer run, which means that everybody who works there, including myself, have had difficult times in our lives. And we know what it's like to try to crawl out of those holes without support. Peer support is one of the most beneficial methods that I have ever had the experience of encountering. I've worked in other modalities, and there's just something like peer support. It just provides something that nothing else does. You know, when people come to us, I like to invite them to change. And the peer support gives them the safety and the security of a place to be able to do just that. I don't know what else to say. It's just such a valuable resource, and I see so many wonderful things happen with people. And one of them is with Morgan right here, and I'd like her to speak if you don't mind.
Thanks, Teresa. And while Morgan's coming up, yeah, I think just really highlighting, you know, if somebody's at an unstable place and the options become step away and go to some place like Respite where there's care and warmth and space to heal and warm, caring people to support you in that healing, it's really light years different than being placed in a locked inpatient psychiatric health facility. And that's really what drove that vision, is we need to have another off-ramp, another opportunity for people so that that's not the only option when people are having a hard time. And so thank you so much, Morgan, for joining us today. Morgan's a peer supporter at Insight Respite Center.
Thank you so much for having me here. My name's Morgan Johnston, and I work as a peer support specialist with Insight Respite, and I'm also a former client there. You know, I came to Insight Respite as somebody who lacked all hope, all motivation. I struggled all my life being told that I would never amount to anything, that I would never be anybody. And I really found the hope and inspiration that I needed at Insight Respite because I didn't have to struggle with survival anymore. You know, I found people who understood me for me, who supported me regardless of what I had been through. You know, it's quite the program. I can say, at least as a former client, that, you know, I would not be where I'm at now had I not become a client. I really wouldn't, you know. Not having to worry about survival, having my needs met, like food, shelter, having a quiet location where I felt safe, you know, away from the people who had hurt me. it was a relief, and I was able to finally focus on doing better for myself. And I did. I really did. You know, and it's been an absolute pleasure. And working here has also been one of the greatest gifts that I've ever received in life. I think that's about all I have to say.
Thank you so much for sharing that, and I think it's a great testament to that journey and the wholeness that respite can offer to people, of seeing people's whole selves and allowing them to be welcome to the table in a way that maybe they haven't experienced before, and how that can be that first stepping stone down the path of recovery and wellness and inclusivity and connectedness.
Yeah.
And I love, the last thing I'll say about respite is there's a sense of community there that comes from
Yes,
that.
there
And
really is.
yeah, the connectedness I see between all of you that work there, and whether it's you've been a client or not been a client, you're a supporter or not a supporter, whatever, people are connected and care deeply about each other. People come back and get support still, and it's just, we're phenomenally lucky to have this incredible resource and to be able to provide a permanent home for it. To know that this program will be able to continue in perpetuity is just invaluable.
Indeed.
Thank you. Oops, I forgot to give you your pretty slide. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Phoebe. Really nice to have testimony that goes along with the issue about purchasing property. Thank you so much for your volunteering to do that. Heidi, you want to start?
Thank you so much for this presentation. It's great to see you, Teresa. And Morgan, thank you. I love it when people who are clients end up becoming providers in a situation like this. What a testament to how successful the program is, and how you can benefit in multiple ways. And this is one of the things that makes me love this county so much, is that we have all these different ways to help people get back on their feet, and that, you know, compassion is an just integral part of our services. It's just fabulous. I wonder, Phoebe, if you could help me and maybe others in the public who might be unclear on how this program fits in. So we have the CMU, I think, the Crisis Medical Unit for people who might be going into the hospital, but they can avoid that. We have Ranch House for folks who are stepping down for mental health issues. We have hospitality houses, you know, for folks who are looking for homes. How does this respite house fit into that grouping of needs?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. So respite is really part of our crisis continuum of care. So some of the programs you described are really more of our longer term supportive housing environments. But regardless of where somebody's living, if they're having a hard time, or not living, somebody who may be unhoused as well, if they're having a hard time, they may be starting to engage into our crisis system. So maybe mobile crisis has gone out to see them, or maybe they've come into the hospital for an assessment, or maybe they just know themselves well enough to know, I'm entering a hard time and I need something more than what I'm currently doing to stay stable and well. And so what we're doing always then is assessing and saying, is this person unable to care safely for themselves or others, in which case we need to place them on a hold and hospitalize them, or with the right supports, can they be safe and do what they need to do to take care of themselves? And that's where respite fits in. So instead of needing only having hospitalization or go back home, we have this other option of, why don't we try respite for a couple weeks and see if we can help you get what you need there and get you on a better, more stable path. And then equally much on sort of the other end of the crisis system, if somebody does reach the point where they need to be hospitalized, it can be jarring to go from hospitalization back to whatever your living environment was, if that was a destabilizing place for you. And so we use respite then as well. So somebody might come straight from a hospitalization to respite for a few weeks to regain some strategies that they're going to use to take back with them into their daily life, or work on a housing plan or a different housing plan if safety is a concern, things like that.
Thank you. That's helpful. Is there a limit on how long someone can stay there?
There's a 28-day limit because it's not meant to be like a permanent home, and there's sort of residency legal statuses that change after a certain amount of time. But people can come as often as they need to respite, depending on availability. We're often juggling beds like everywhere in our system, so we're a little bit triaging and prioritizing, but.
Okay, thank you very much.
Artie?
Thanks. Yeah, I think Heidi asked my questions. Thanks, Morgan, for coming up and talking to us. I really appreciate that. I had a question about the assessed fair market value, or the appraisal. Was an appraisal done on the property, and it was indeed done, and the purchase price that we're essentially funding through our purchase of the deed restriction is exactly what the fair market value is. So I just wanted to check on that in the background. Thanks for providing that. And then along the same lines that Heidi was asking for, how many annual participants cycle through? Do you just an estimated number of clients that we serve?
We've been serving about 70 a year.
Okay. Perfect. That's all the questions I had. Thanks for bringing it forward.
Sue?
Well, thanks. Great presentation. I'm always amazed at the amount of compassion that we have here for our people that live here. They're our community. And that's the main thing, that's the main goal. And thank you for sharing. That was really heartfelt, Morgan. Appreciate that so much. So with all that, I just have a question because I had a constituent call and I didn't have time to ask you this morning. They were interested in the program and they asked, who maintains it?
So the facility will be owned by Turning Point, and so they will maintain it. We contract with them for the program that is run there, and so it's our job to find the funding to allow the program to run appropriately.
Okay, I thought that was the answer, but I didn't have a chance to call you ahead of time, so but thank you. And I gotta say, that's what I do love about all of you, is that we can call and have and retain all the kind of information that you have from our agenda, so really appreciate that. So again, I want to thank you, and I want to thank both of you for being here, and all of you that work in Turning Point. It's got to feel like a blessing to be able to share that back.
Thank you. Yes, I would agree with my colleagues, and also thank you for sharing your experience, but also for using your life experience to help other people. I think that is an amazing movement forward. So just a couple questions. So is there 24-hour people there supervising? Okay. And do you have any transportation issues? Because it is a little far out of town. How do people get to doctor's appointments? Do you have caseworkers who are there helping people?
Yeah, so in addition to the Turning Point staff who's present at all times, everyone pretty much that's placed there is a client of behavioral health or Turning Points, and so they have case managers assigned to them. And so there's additional staff available to connect people up to appointments and resources, which is a lot of the work that's happening during that time too, is like sort of what do we need in place to help you feel okay once you leave here.
Okay. And then, so I think you answered my question. So the property will be managed by Turning Point, and it looks like it's a little over 4 acres. So are they prepared to maintain that? Because that's a pretty daunting process. It's much different than having a small house in town on a small parcel.
Sure. And, Turning Point, I don't want to speak too much for them, but owns a number of properties throughout the state, I believe, because they operate in many counties. So I think they're pretty familiar with their role as sort of landowner, and they're deeply invested in being good neighbors wherever they are. And so
You could ask Turning Point to speak if you wish.
I think just as long as they're aware that, having that large of a parcel comes with a responsibility, especially in the fire danger and all of that sort of thing. So as long as that's something, they're all nodding their heads, so I'm good with that. And so thanks for all the work that you guys do. I appreciate it.
And it is really great having Turning Point here, especially the top guy. Thank you for being here. Yeah, just a real quick question on the dollars. I note that it's $650,000 for the property, and yet the resolution is $750,000. You want to just kind of explain that, Phoebe?
Sure. And we when we brought before you earlier the contract amendment for Turning Point, it was with the $750,000 limit in as well. And that's to account for two things. One is any costs incurred in the process of the purchase, like appraisals and things like that. And then secondly, there were a few minor upkeep issues that were identified in the inspections, and so we wanted to fund those as well. And so we'll pay up to the amount of those particular needs. So unlikely to hit that $750,000 cap, but that gave us the buffer to be able to purchase and get those final pieces paid for.
Good, thank you. Is there any public comment on this particular item? Come on up.
Good afternoon, Board. I'm Desiree Belding, your Deputy Purchasing Agent, but I want to take my hat off for just a minute and speak to you as a property owner on Auburn Road. My husband and I own 15 acres, 2 parcels to the north of this location. I had no idea that Turning Point was there. Wonderful neighbor. It's a very quiet operation. The property is very well abated as far as vegetation removed. It's very clear. I did have a couple of concerns that I had spoke to Phoebe with offline. She's going to connect me with the Turning Point people just so that I can talk to them more building-related driveway encroachment issues. Nothing major for the concern of this. I am fully in support of this. Respite Insight is something that is very near and dear to my heart. I lost my mom to a suicide. She suffered with mental illness, and I really wish that something like this was in place for her. So I 100% support this and just wanted to share with you as your peer of a county employee, but also as a property owner adjacent to this property. I really support this. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Deborah. It really is nice having a property owner come in and say, and they appreciate it.
Good morning, members of the board. Al Roulette, Chief Executive Officer for Turning Point Community Programs. And again, it's always an honor and a privilege to be able to work with Nevada County. As indicated by my colleagues, we are residents, we live in Nevada County. So we feel, as someone said, blessed to be here and regard this as our county. Want to give you every assurance that the supervision is provided 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that we have lots of experience managing properties, many of which are larger than this one, including 15-bed, 3 of which in Sacramento County, Chrysler's residential programs, one of which is on a large parcel, over an acre, that has its own unique attribute as it produces fruit on the property, and we have to manage that acreage. In addition, we want to make sure that we're always good neighbors and abide by good neighbor policy. We want to provide services that are cost-effective and ensure that as we work with Phoebe and our realtor to make sure that we were going through the appropriate appraisal process, because again, like you, we want to make sure that we're good citizens here. And then most importantly to us, it's that compassion that you spoke of. Being able to convey with compassion the unique skills and ability that our colleagues have, and the goal always to support them with flourishing and not see them as individuals with psychiatric symptoms or illnesses, but as individuals who can thrive in their community and, if afforded the opportunity, can be successful at work and flourish and inspire others to do the very same, which is what we want for every person in our community. And I would also say I uniquely have been touched by psychiatric illness. I lost my son, unfortunately, as he battled depression and could not manage that. And so am not only personally committed to this, but also have extended 42 years of my career to commitment to working with people and ensuring that they flourish in communities that they desire to be in. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Leadership matters, and we really do appreciate the opportunity to be a part of what I would consider some of the most amazing leaders in the state of California. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Thank you for your comments, and it's always good to have you here. Madam Clerk, are there any callers?
Yes, we do have one caller, Chair.
Okay.
Can we bring the caller in, please?
Hi, Board. Matthew Coulter calling in, walking back down East Main Street right now after going to the hospital and seeing actually an escape person from the CSU up there. We're all in agreement that we need more help. Like many people in the world are asking for help for major crisis, including Turkey right now. And I'm worried about bang for the buck and how much it costs per person to get to a place where we can make that claim that they are that productive member of the community. Because the ranch house was a good example, as you pushed it through, that it didn't really fit the mold. And I'm concerned about, again, pushing people and having places farther out, away from community, away from bus lines, away from services, and you say that you guys have the transportation thing all handled. Well, let's get into greenhouse gases then. Let's, talk about wear and tear, the neighbor in the driveway issue. I mean, there's so many tentacles to all these things, and when you throw $1 million at it and just say, sounds good, we all care, we all want to help, we're all in agreement, there just needs to be more thought put into it because we're like $1 million a person or more at this point. And we're just going to have a tidal wave hit us this summer that's going to, push all this stuff farther back. So we're not going to catch up with demand. So the word triage, I think, was important. And that is something that the county really needs to consider with the unhoused, because the unhoused will lead you to mental illness quite easily. Being cold, being hungry, being unsafe all the time puts an undue amount of stress on the human body. So please consider, actually, this subject as well as other ones in the county. I would like an audit because I just don't think that the money is being spent correctly and that we're seeing any results, like there's any matrix to answer by. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate your comments. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment portion. I'll bring it back to the board for any other final comments. If none, I would entertain a motion approving an award of the American Rescue Plan Act for $750,000 to fund the existing agreement between Nevada County Behavioral Health Department and Turning Point Community Programs to purchase assessor's parcel number 025/232/025/000, located at 16573 Auburn Road, Grass Valley, California, and authorizing the auditor controller to amend fiscal year 2022-23 ARPA budget and release fund balances, and a 4/5 vote is required.
So moved.
Motion Supervisor Hall.
I'll second that.
Seconded Supervisor Hook. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Chair. District 4.
District 4, yes.
District 3.
Yes.
District 1.
Yes.
District 5.
Yes.
And District 2.
Yes. Thank you, Phoebe. Thank you, Al. Thank you. How are we doing? You want a few minutes? Okay. Lisa? Okay. All right, then we'll go to our next agenda item, and this is from our County Executive Officer, Allison Lehman. This is a resolution approving an interfund loan from the general fund balance to Western County Solid Waste Fund 4117 to assist with potential cash flow shortages resulting from the Courtney Road Transfer Station Improvement Project.
Great, thank you, Chair Schofield. And we have a team here to present this item. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Barry Anderson, analyst with the County Executive Office, that will introduce the item and introduce the presenters. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Chair Schofield, members of the board, my name is Barry Anderson, and analyst in the CEO's office. We do have three.
Yeah, I want to point out too, I missed the first part of it, of course. It was the resolution approving a contract with the County of Nevada and Bobo Construction Incorporated for construction of the McCourtney Road Transfer Station. Thank you, Barry. My apologies.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. Yeah, as mentioned, we have three items before you sort of associated with this presentation, I will hand it off to David Garcia, Program Manager for Solid Waste, to kick off the presentation, and then we will open each item up for conversation after that.
Thank you, Chair Schofield, Supervisors. David Garcia, Solid Waste Program Manager with the county. Before we get started, I wanted to do a quick overview of what we'll be discussing today, but a lot of this is going to be stuff that we've talked about at length at prior meetings, so my intent today is to recap and highlight some of the high-level stuff and then to focus on the actual bid process. So first of all, we're going to be recapping on the project's history. This project's had a long history, so we just want to use that as a context for how we got to where we are today. Secondly, we'll be outlining some of the challenges that help shape the project and why we feel the project's so important to the community. Go over some of the basic design elements, and then finally discuss the project's funding and the approvals that we're requesting today. I wanted to start with the project's history. Most recently, this item came to the board twice in 2021, in early, I think, March 2021 for the approval of the environmental document, and then again in December for approval of the plans and specifications and authorization to bid. The transfer station's approximately 30 years old. We've outgrown the original design capacity for that facility. So in a nutshell, why we're here is that we're no longer able to meet the demands of both traffic and material at the facility as it's currently designed. In 2012, we awarded a franchise agreement to Waste Management, and at that time, Waste Management and the county agreed that the facility was not adequate and that we needed to look at either relocating or revamping the existing facility. And Waste Management committed $5.6 million to the project at that time. But I do want to point out that the facility is owned by Nevada County and remains an important hub for all of Western Nevada County's solid waste infrastructure. So, past the life of the franchise agreement, the facility will remain a county property. In 2013, we did evaluate various alternative site locations, and the Board of Supervisors at that time approved renovating the existing site rather than relocating as the best project alternative. In 2015, we did a conceptual design analysis, which is essentially the basis for the design that we're looking at today. There were some curveballs that hit us throughout this process, and the biggest being the state's adoption of AB 1826 and SB 1383, which is the organics waste or food waste mandates that affect all jurisdictions throughout the state. Obviously, we had to make sure that whatever we were designing took into consideration those mandates, and so a pretty big change that happened in the middle of the process. In 2017, we looked at our existing franchise agreement to update it both because of the state mandates, but also to clarify roles and responsibilities for delivering the MERTS project, and that was adopted in June of 2019, that franchise agreement amendment, and then we went right into design. Starting in 2020, early 2020, we started the design and environmental review process right before COVID hit. That process did include a lot of public outreach, and again came to the board in March of 2021 for approval of the environmental document, and later that year for approval of the plans and specifications. Some of the project challenges: it's a challenging site. It's a very small footprint, and whatever we designed had to fit within the existing footprint. So it's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. You had to make the design fit the site. The second is this is one of the most heavily regulated sites in all of Nevada County. We have oversight from the Water Quality Control Board, from Cal Recycle, in addition to all of the local regulatory oversight. So that was all part of the project, a pretty complicated project. Again, legislative mandates. In addition to the organics waste mandates, we do have a variety of other mandates that dictate how we handle solid waste, including diversion, et cetera, that all needed to be taken into consideration. We needed to continue the operation of the facility during construction, which is tricky. Again, it's a small site, so a major part of our planning effort was to design this thing so that it can be built in phases so that we can keep the operation going. And then obviously with any capital project, budget is a consideration. And then finally, we wanted to design a project that met the needs, brought us up to speed for what we're lacking today, but also the needs for the next 30 years. So we had to design something that can adapt to change and technology, because the one thing we know in solid waste is that there's going to be change in the course of the next 30 years that we probably don't anticipate. So again, I'm not going to go into depth of all the site's deficiencies or the proposed design elements. Rather, I'm going to focus on the highlights from our prior board presentations. Just a basic orientation, the site takes access off of Wolf Mountain Road to the west. The northern road is our existing green waste road, and the southern road is the primary access to the site. The large rectangle in the middle is the existing public receiving area, or where we take trash. The smaller rectangle directly below that is our existing scale house facility. To the far south is our recycling and household hazardous waste areas, and to the east is our green waste, construction and demolition area, and concrete area. Our primary issue on site today is traffic. The bottleneck being the existing scale house, which has one scale in and one scale out. So during peak times, which we can see up to between 700 and 1,100 vehicles per day, we simply do not have the capacity at the existing scale facility to handle that volume of traffic. There's a minimum transaction time. And in addition to that, we also have a limited number of bays at the existing public receiving area. As I mentioned earlier, food waste is also a big concern for us. As the facility is currently designed, there's no place for us to safely handle food waste. Food waste requires leachate collection, it requires cover, it requires infrastructure, and we simply don't have a place to segregate that on site, which means without this project, the county is liable for noncompliance from Cal Recycle and ultimately potentially responsible for or liable for financial penalties through SB 1383. And then finally, again, I want to reiterate that we needed to consider a project that would be viable for, again, not just today, but for the next 30 years. This is an overlay of the site plan. This hasn't changed since the meeting in December or our two meetings in 2021. We're proposing to expand the existing site entry road to provide a direct through lane to the recycling and free waste area, including household hazardous waste. We're proposing to build a new scale facility with 4 scales, which doubles our scale capacity in 2 scale houses. And also, we're proposing to build a large new public receiving building, approximately 48,000 square feet. Some of the benefits of this design, the operation will be indoors, as opposed to how we currently have the operation on site, which is basically just a big cover or awning. So this operation will be fully indoors. It has about 3 times the number of drop bays, so significantly helps with the bottleneck issues that we currently have at the site. And then the biggest thing is it's essentially just a large open structure. And we did that intentionally because it provides us with the maximum amount of flexibility for a variety of waste streams, for employing technology, for adapting to change. And then I should note that this building won't just be for trash. The intent is for there to be recycling and trash all under the same building. And then finally, we would be converting the existing public receiving building for our organics waste collection efforts. This is basically a rendering of the project, how it might look from looking down from the north. Again, you can see the new entry road, you can see the new scale facility, and our new public receiving area. So we originally bid this project in early 2022. It could not have been a worse time. It was the peak of market instability. We had extremely high interest rates, particularly in construction projects and capital. I think it was 40% at that time. We had that was the peak of the fuel crisis, supply chain issues, et cetera, et cetera. I think it was only a few weeks after the Ukrainian war had started, and this was coming off of COVID. So we were very concerned. When we opened bids, they came in significantly higher than we even anticipated, but higher than the engineer's estimate. To address this cost discrepancy, we rejected all bids, and we wanted to go back into the design and just see if there was any low-hanging fruit, anything we could change to improve the bids, knowing that if we rebid the project, we still might find ourselves in a situation where the market was unstable. The most significant thing that we were able to find was just simply moving from a drop bay to a top load, which is how the facility currently operates. We could maintain the capacity that we originally designed it. We can retain the footprint. We can essentially retain everything on site, but make a minor operational change, but have a very big effect. And so it allowed us to cut out approximately 370 feet of retaining walls, to reduce the height of the retaining walls by almost 10 feet, to significantly reduce the amount of dirt we were going to be moving as part of the project, and to remove a significant amount of structural elements for that building to have that cantilever floor that it had before. So again, from a design standpoint, most folks wouldn't notice the difference, but from a construction standpoint, we were hoping that that would make a significant cost savings. We rebid the project in November 2022 and opened bids in January. Unfortunately, the low bidder was deemed non-responsive due to irregularities in the bid item list, but the second bidder was Bobo Construction, and their bid came in at about $20 million, which was below our engineer's estimate, both for the first bid and the second bid. And it was about $4 million below our original bid that we opened in early 2022. So it was, once again, beyond even our expectations. Just to reiterate, the construction would be a 2-year construction project, which means we would start construction shortly in a month or two this spring, and then it would wrap up sometime in late 2024. With that, I'm going to pass it on to Barry to discuss the project funding.
Thank you, David. You advance the slide for me. So obviously this is a big project, and as David mentioned, the budget and the financing was a key consideration. We had a lot of brains at work on this. But to summarize, the current budget and how we intend to pay for it consists of, so there's fund balance in the Solid Waste Western Program Fund, approximately $13.6 million. That has been accumulated over time for this project. As David mentioned, Waste Management is contributing. There's $5.3 million remaining on their total contribution that'll be applied to this project. And then we anticipate additional revenue over expense over the course of the construction timeline to contribute an additional $3.2 million. And if you're doing the math in your head, that is a total of $22.1 million, which is equivalent to the $20 million contract plus contingency. Now, you'll also note that there is that little blue section, which is a general fund loan. That is the second item that your board will be asked to take action on this today. So if we can talk about that a little bit, based on the original bids, as David discussed, coming in significantly higher than the available resources would allow, we were anticipating that we would need to issue private financing or bonds to help cover the gap and ensure that the program could continue its operations with sufficient cash flow. Following county debt management policy directives, we did assemble a team to take the steps necessary to issue those bonds. That consists of the Debt Advisory Council, or committee rather, consisting of the Auditor Controller's Office, County Council, the Treasurer, Tax Collector, and CEO staff. And CDA staff was brought in as well to help us make sense of the operational cash needs. We also brought in the county's financial advisor, KNN. Your board approved a bond financing directive, in essence, on October 25th, and approved a contract with KNN to help us navigate that bond financing on December 6th. And the plan there was to have that financing in place at the time that we opened the bids so that we could move forward without unnecessary delay. So, as was mentioned, those bids did come in significantly less than expected, which resulted in a much smaller need. Instead of, we were anticipating up to $15 million. Now that need looked a lot more like 0 to possibly up to $3 million. A lot of that depends largely on the actual operating costs through the construction timeframe, but we're anticipating $0 to $3 million of cash flow, potential cash flow assistance required. So this basically resulted in a change of course supported by that debt advisory committee and county staff and the financial advisor. In essence, and this was also mentioned with budget subcommittee, the recommendation shifted then from the issuance of bonds or private financing to requesting authorization for a short-term loan from the general fund, which would not exceed $3 million and would be over a period not to exceed 5 years. And that would only be drawn upon if needed. As mentioned, and without going into too much into the weeds, the program has ongoing operational costs that could see certain factors drive a spike in any given year, which might sort of further pinch the cash flow. And that's when we would probably need to leverage that loan. But it's very possible that they won't need it at all. So instead of issuing bonds, as mentioned, we are recommending a general fund loan. We did review various alternatives, and this is the one that makes the most sense and is recommended by that debt advisory committee and the CDA staff and county executive staff. The solid waste fund will save significant dollars in interest by not having to take out financing that they may not ultimately need. And given the small amount of financing, that $3 million maximum, other options such as a private financing really aren't viable. You don't get a lot of interest from the private lending community for something, excuse me, of that scale. So that is in essence why we have that general fund loan at, like I said, if necessary, and as the second item. And then the third item before your board today is an amendment to the KNN contract, that financial advisor. That amendment really just reflects changes to the language of that contract. There is no change to the scope of services, but would allow, so KNN did a significant amount of work in helping us prepare the private financing, getting it ready up to the point where we had financing very close to lined up. When we opened the bids, obviously we had to pivot, but they did a significant amount of work, and this contract language adjustment would allow us to compensate them for the work that they did in good faith in support of that project. So our recommendation for you today is to award the first item, which is a contract to Bobo Construction in the amount of $20 million plus 10% contingency, and authorize the auditor controller to encumber the contract and release fund balance in the Solid Waste Western Fund, and to amend the Solid Waste fiscal year 22-23 budget. We would also request that you approve or authorize the loan from the general fund in an amount not to exceed $3 million, which would only be drawn against if needed to help manage cash flow in the Solid Waste Western Fund. And lastly, we would request that you approve Amendment 1 to the contract with our financial advisor. And that concludes our presentation. I'm happy to answer questions at this time.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you, David. Well, Hardy, I know this doesn't impact you too much other than the dollars being spent.
Yeah, thank you. I actually have a story. I went to the dump in Western County, and I went in there and I pulled in, and it was, I thought I was gonna beat all the traffic, and I was like out on McCourtney waiting. It took me a long time, so I totally commiserate with what you have to handle there. It's a huge, complex issue. So I'm in total favor of this and have tracked it since I got on the board, and I have advanced kind of knowledge because I sit on the budget subcommittee, so we've talked a little bit about the financing. I'm super comfortable. Job well done in rebidding this. You saved the taxpayer a whole bunch of money, so I can't thank you enough. It's the right thing to do, and it's good government, so I'm totally in support of it.
Thank you, Hardy. Heidi?
Thank you. It's exciting to see this come this far and to be ready to construct. Oh my God, we need this so badly. A couple of questions. On the third item, so Barry, this is for past work done. I'm just wondering why that wasn't able to come to the board earlier.
So the original contract in essence, was worded in such a way that the payment provisions were contingent upon the completion of a private financing. So when we realized that we were shifting away from that, we realized that there was just basically a logistical challenge in being able to pay them because we weren't going to do that private financing.
That makes sense, and we're saving more than that, I think, anyway.
Yeah, we will ultimately be paying less than the contract total because they didn't,
Right, okay. And then harder question. I know, David, I know you've had to deal with a lot of comments about how much waste management is contributing to this. But the question I have is that in 2012, they committed to 5.6 million, right? What do you,
Yes.
okay, and do we know what 2012, 5.6 million would be in 2023 dollars? And was there no request to ask them to contribute a bit more since we had took this long?
So the short answer is I don't know the difference in dollars from 2012 to 2022, and there's no clause in the contract for escalators or for how that financing would have changed over time. So short, I think a full renegotiation of that contract. I think the $5.6 million is their commitment, and again, a portion of that has already been spent. We spent approximately $300,000 to revamp the existing public receiving area to allow us to be able to reuse that for organics waste. So we've already done, you could say, some work on site to help us achieve our SB 1383 goals.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think the most frustrating thing for me about all of this has been the inability to renegotiate small stuff with them, because the contract is the way it is, and everything that is more than small means we have to reopen a major contract. I don't know if there's a way to do it differently. But maybe as we go forward, I'm sure there are going to be, potential contract overages or new issues that come up. Maybe we can go back to them and ask them to contribute a little bit more, since I'm sure those dollars, would be more in 2023 dollars. So I don't know what our flexibility is there, but we'd love to see them meet our needs today, which they were willing to do in 2012.
Absolutely. And the one thing I would mention, not that this balances anything out, but the solid waste world has changed pretty significantly from when we entered that contract in 2012. I mean, the recycling market completely crashed or tanked in 2016. We've seen some pretty significant shifts, and stuff like COVID and the economy, and I mean, waste management is not exempt to those pressures, just like any other business. So I think just making the point that it kind of goes both ways with a contract that's as long as our contract is, where, sometimes, for example, when the recycling market tanks, waste management takes a hit, and then in a situation like the MERTS project, maybe the dollars have changed or the math has changed. So again, it goes both ways.
Yeah, I want to acknowledge that, and despite a lot of frustrations over time in the community, they've been a good partner in many, many ways. So I do understand that. Yeah, thank you.
Sue?
While we're here, this has been an adventure. So thank you for the update. I'm elated that we went out and rebid this contract. I think that was huge. You guys did a fantastic job foreseeing that and really looking at that long range. That saved us a lot of money. Yeah, I mean, we all have, David, you are the best. I'm just not gonna say, I can't tell you how many calls and issues we get that you work with waste management very quickly, and they usually come up to a solution. So I know we get a lot of complaints that we can't fix every day, but you have really, really been that voice between waste management and the county, and you've done a great job. I really appreciate that, and I just am, I'm gonna be relieved. I mean, I know I go out to the dump a lot. I still call it the dump because I'm raised here. It's still gonna be the dump to me forever, the transfer station. But I feel like the county, we did a lot. I mean, we jumped and changed, and we added road turnouts. We've really done our best, and then we can put it a little bit back on ourselves, right? What really does need to get thrown away? What can we do recycle-wise? What can go up to the restore? So we as a public can do a little bit to manage this better as well. So I just want to say that we need to take responsibility ourselves. I'm a better dump person myself when I go. I have a different outlook on what goes there. Everybody should kind of take a peek at that when you go in and complain while you're there. So, but I am looking forward to this. I think it's going to be interesting as we go through the process. I can't wait till you break ground. I think it's going to be exciting to see how we move people through the process. But again, the work that went into this and to get where we are here today, I thank you. And Heidi, you made a lot of really great comments about, the contract, and we are going to see the contract again coming up. So there are some things that we can do to make some changes. And it's because not just there, it's North San Juan and different places. And somebody made that comment, a lot of people don't get waste management. This, we don't have it in different parts of our outside district. So anyway, I just want to thank you again. Good presentation, and I'm really excited about seeing this move forward.
And thank you, supervisors. I not to deflect, but I have to say, for the MERTS project, this was truly a team effort. I mean, from the top down, so many people involved, and especially over the last year. So I can't take credit for that.
You can take credit for the complaints. And you do it so well. And you get the resolve.
Thank you. So when I first started, 5 weeks ago, and they used the acronym, the MERTS, I had no idea what it is because, like Sue, it's the dump. So, and I also appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this. This is my first experience of seeing it. I appreciate the tour that you took me on just to kind of show the difference. And I also understand the public's frustration of having to wait in long lines. I'm in a really old house, and I had to go to hazardous waste probably 10 times over the year to get rid of all the stuff that was left there. And everybody was very kind after you wait in line for however long, but it all worked out. I think my only question or issue would be how we're going to work with the public in the next few months to let them know that this is happening. And I think you and I talked about this a little bit offline, but it's going to be a challenge because people don't pay attention. So you can run it in the newspaper, you can put it on the radio, you can put it on social media, but they're going to get out there and they're going to say, what's going on here? So whatever we can do to let the public know that this is coming. I know there's a lot of people who use the dump consistently, especially our construction industry and some of our restaurants and commercial businesses. Even maybe some big signs going up at the entrance saying, coming soon, under construction, expect delays. So as much as we can do to help the public get through this, especially because it's going to take a couple of years, and it's always painful going through it, and then people forget because it's so fantastic when you get it finished. So good luck, and looking forward to it.
Thank you. Yeah, David. And I think over the years, you've really kept us up to date on what's been going through on this. So that's greatly appreciated. And yeah, Lisa, you haven't had as much time as we've had to look at it. But again, appreciate the tour because I went out with Lisa too, just to really get the feel for it, even though you've seen it on pictures many times. So I think it's great, and it's come out so much better than we had originally anticipated with the original bid that came out. So, I mean, this is wonderful. I kind of hate to bring this up, but at public comment today, there was the one gentleman asking for the other day, and I think it might be something that we could really look at it. Is that at all possible? And maybe let us know why that couldn't be. But I'm as concerned as everybody else with the construction period. It's probably going to end up shutting down the facility at certain times. And so that's just a concern, and maybe that is an answer that we could come up with too. Okay. Is there any public comment on this? Desiree? Is there any callers?
We do have one caller waiting.
Okay.
Can we bring the caller in, please?
There's always one person very fascinated by trash. I'm glad David is our man for that. He's really into what he does. By the way, this is Matthew Coulter. And
Hi, Matthew.
I'm worried about the traffic. But I guess my question is, I was, at the board workshop and saw the plans for the new animal shelter. And wondering, with all these millions of dollars spent every couple of weeks, why we can't relocate the animal shelter and have that piece of land be used for the waste management situation in Nevada County. And again, traffic. I just hate to think of all the fuel burned going out there and back and waiting in line compared to having drop-off containers in different locations that could be picked up even if it was daily. It would reduce the traffic and the pollution to such a degree, you could see it visually in the air, I'm sure. So I love that something is happening, and I love this. Of course, it's lower priced, but I just like with Phoebe's thing, everything, it never seems to come to the point where we don't use every single penny put towards a project. There's not many projects where we have a lot of money left over to put towards other projects. So I expect every project to just keep going up. When I hear on the news this morning that certain items have gone up 27% in 3 months in the U.S., and that's still climbing inflation. So everyone listen to the State of the Union tonight and think about trash. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Matthew. Any other callers, written comments?
That's the only one, Chair.
Very good. Then at this point, we will close the public hearing or public comment portion. Bring it back to the Board of Supervisors for any final comments. And I think we have 3 separate motions, resolutions to be made here. First one being a resolution awarding and approving a contract between the County of Nevada and Bobo Construction in the amount of $20,037,837 and a contingency of $2,003,784 for a total $22,041,621.
So moved.
A motion, Supervisor Hook.
Second.
A second, Supervisor Bullock. Madam Clerk?
District 4,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 1,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
District 2.
Yes. Our second motion is a resolution approving an interfund loan from the general fund balance to the Western County Solid Waste Fund for the assistance with potential cash flow shortages resulting from the MERTS project. And I believe that's not to exceed $3 million? Yes.
So
Motion.
moved.
Motion
Second.
Supervisor Bullock, seconded Supervisor Swarthout.
District 4,
District 4, yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 1,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
District 2.
Yes. And our final motion is an amendment to the contract between the County of Nevada, KNN, and KNN Public Finance to serve as the county's municipal advisor. And I think that's been described by Barry. This is a good thing. We don't need their services, and yet we're paying for what they've already done for us. So I'll entertain a motion there.
So moved.
Motion Supervisor Hall,
Second.
second Supervisor Hook.
District 4,
District 4, yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 1,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
and District 2.
Yes. Thank you, David. Thank you, Barry. Thank you, Tricia, Martin. And with that, at 11:34 on February 7th, this meeting is adjourned.